Our family, there was Becker's a cousin, this Becker's, wie heißt er, in England, Becker,
Frank.
Frank. And here he's got here my brother also.
I don't know his name.
Yes, he's got a flat here in Barcelona, a holiday flat. It's their father was noch alive, Ronne Becker. So he got a message from Italy, from a monastery, that there is a little boy, and he said he had an uncle in South Africa, and his name is Ronne Becker. And then the Jewish Board of Deputies had a list which one were looking for relations. So Ronne was in Johannesburg, and they had a meeting by the Jewish deputies, and he got a doctor, that is my sister's child, you know.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten what was their name. I've forgotten their name, what it was. But he found it. So that child was about 6 years old. So when the Bolsheviks or the Germans came, they were fighting in that Ragola. And they had a very big shop, a shoe shop. And their grandfather was a grain merchant. So when then he found out, so Ronne Becker flew to Italy to find out the child. So he was already a boy of 12 or 13 or 15, you see. And the monastery gave him, but he was 6, and at home 6 years a child can already read
Of
Hebrew,
course, yeah.
Hebrew, and he goes in Cheder and he reads and he knows everything. So he knew he was a Jew, you see. Because other children, smaller ones, they grew up like Christians. You see, but they were wearing tags that they are Jewish children, you know, which one.
Yeah. So was this child the only person to escape the whole...
No, I'll tell you how he did escape. He ran out through the back door, and he ran in the garden. And there the garden was potatoes growing, and the potatoes were already so high, the top. So he lay down flat because he saw it. They shot his father and mother and the others, but he just slipped out and went. I think he said before his father died, or he told him to run. He told him to run. Said, go hide away in the potato beds, and when you be able to go to that and that, what they call them, authorities, what owns land, you know.
Yeah, the local landowner.
A landowner, but they were from a royalty, you see.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
like, wait a second, they got a name, what they call them.
Like a count or something like that.
So something like it, you know. So I run to them and tell them that we are getting killed and he will hide you. So he was lying for 3 days in the potato beds. Yes, he was 3 days in the potato beds, and then when he heard that the shooting got subsided, so he started off walking for miles to that farm, and he came to that man. So the man saw him, and he hid him in a stack of hay. And he told him that in the night time, he didn't want it even his wife should know. Nobody knew. And he covered him there, and he told him that he must lie there, and he will bring him food. And in the night time, he used to take him out for a walk to give him a run. And he was 5 years in that stack of hay. He was there till that walk came over, that already when the Americans came in, you know.
Wasn't it the Russians who came in that side?
Well, the Russians came in, or no, the Russians were there and the Germans were fighting there. And after, yes, the Russians came in there.
Mm.
And the Germans, the Americans came in Germany.
Yeah. So this boy was the only boy of the whole village to get away?
I don't know who else, but he told the story to his uncle, Connie Becker, Frank's father. And he was already a boy of 15 or 17 because he was already in the high school in Italy. So he said, it's no use him leaving the studies. He wants to finish, and then he wants to go to university. And he wants to be a doctor. He became a doctor, but he says, after doctor, I'll go to Palestine. Then he went to Israel. And Connie gave him the money for finishing, and that's where I know. So he said, do you know what they did when lying in the beds of the potatoes, in between the beds? So he saw how they took all the Jews from the village and they shoveled them in the big shul, and they set a light. They burned them all. And when they burned them, he ran away to that. But that did the Lithuanian, the peasants. They did this to the Jews, not the Russians. With the instructions from the Germans that they did it. Well, Jews were everywhere very liked. You know that in all the villages in Russia. So that's what had happened. But this man, I can't remember what was his name. So he knew, and he told them what had happened to all the Jews there, including his mother and his father they saw before. Said he doesn't want the house. Said, leave it for your sisters. So let them have it.
Are you tired?
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
I did lie down, but I didn't sleep.
No.
But I was glad to, when I came out, I rested and I lied down. I went to the doctor too.
Yeah, I know. Did he give you
No.
all clear?
Eh?
Did he give you the all clear?
Yes, he said it's okay, and so I must take it easy, and it took me off from one tablet they had tell me, and not to take twice a day, take 1.5. So then you'll see how it is. So I'll come and see you when I'll come back from Johannesburg.
So how tired are you now? You're too tired to let me try and win some money back?
Oh, you won't go and play cards now. Go schlafen. You'll have to, what you call it, to come next time.
Okay, look, in the morning, when you wake up,
Yeah,
wake me up.
okay.
Straight away when you wake up, wake me up.
You
And,
haven't picked?
I'll take me 2 seconds. You wake me up and you can tell me some more stories.
And you see, on top of the, what you call it, I want you to take off 2 suitcases of mine.
Sure.
I'll pick on Wednesday, Thursday. See, I was born in Russia after, but my people, when the war broke out in 1913, 12 and 14, you see, so they conscripted my father and his brother-in-law and an uncle and a nephew.
Was this the revolution? The Russian Revolution?
That was before the revolution. That was before the revolution.
The First World War?
The First World War, before the revolution, they conscripted them. And then he tell my mother just to take a few cushions and soft belongings as much as you can take it, and leave everything and take, you see, to catch a train, they had to go to Kedan. So they had to take a transport by horse, not a carriage, but a
horse cart, yeah.
A horse
Wagon.
but a big one. And we she picked up with all the children and just clothes for 1 change and a few cushions. And that's all. And they went, and they came and came down and caught the train. So they hooked them on a soldier's transport. And the soldiers went, you know, I don't know where they went to send to Ukraine, they went to send to other places. So the first stop, they left them standing in the Ukraines, and they went on. You see, civilians, they didn't want the refugees. They couldn't carry further. So they left them in no man's land. You see. And then they walked to a village, then they got another train, and they landed in Bogodukhov. My mother and the wives of my uncle and his nephew, his son, and my father. So that was 3 or 4 families. What were there? 3 families. 3. And they all have been in the one compartment, in the one saloon. And they were stranded. They hooked them off.
Sorry, where was this?
That was going from Ragole to Siberia or somewhere they had to send them. But they didn't manage to go to Siberia because they cut them off and they had to go to the front for the battlefields. So they remained in that village before Bogodukhov. And Bogodukhov was a very big town, but 30 families were there, Jews, Russians, that's all. Not even 30.
What, the rest of the town was empty?
Hey?
The rest of the town was empty, was it?
No, the town was full. The town was a big town with everything. But then, when they started off, they were conscripted in Lithuania, and they were sending them, the soldiers, further on the battlefield. So the uncle and my father and the nephew, they deserted the army, and they threw away their uniforms, and they were hiding out for 6 months in the forest because it was summer. So they were hiding out in the forest. And after that, when the war was already in full swing, then it was more refugees from Courtleigh, from Kedan, from Rasein, and from and they're from the Balkans, from the other little little what you call it countries, small countries, you know. So there were plenty of refugees. So they tore their clothes and they made themselves their refugees. My mother and my auntie and their daughter-in-law, they went on the stations and they arranged with the citizens from Bogaduchov, they were rich people, kitchens to stay on the station and cook some soup to feed the refugees in the trains. So there where they sought, there where my father and the others came with little pots. I remember my mother said some came with piece pots. They didn't have any utensils. So see, as it was, we cried, and it was really laughable, you know. Then they realized that these people didn't have any utensils. They just didn't have anything. So and to get some food, they came with a chamber. So they used to cook, stay every day, and cook some soup and dish out to the refugees in the trains. And then they find that they find their husbands, you see. So they remained already with them. They didn't go on the train, they remained. And then my mother used to tell that my father got a very good job in a mill as a manager. And the other brothers went to school, to the Russian schools. And then my father he found a yeshiva bocher from the refugees to learn them Hebrew and so on. And that was in 12, that was already in 1914, 15. I was born in 15. So then we came back already in 1922, so I was already 7 years old. We lived, and I remember this like today. I was already, 7 years, you're already a big child. So I remember it was Pesach, and then broke out the revolution the first one, the Bolsheviks, and then was Bolsheviks, Red Army, White Army, Petlurces, Makhnovches, Kerenskis, and Stalinist, and Zabotinskis, and all sorts, all groups, you know. It broke up. Opposite us, we lived in a double-story house, and a very big one. You know, with being 7, 8 children, we had a very big house. So when the Bolsheviks took over that town, that section in the Ukraines, they send us in a notice, and they say that the mayor of town is going to share with us the house. And, you know, he was, you know, from the Bolsheviks, he was a peasant. But how can a Jew have such a big house? It was a very big house with a big garden, a big orchard, everything. And opposite, across the road, was a big brewery from cognac, not beer, cognac and all a distillery, you know. They used to make wines and beers and vodka, everything. So, you know, the peasant came looting. So some of them, they used to come and tell, or it used to be in the paper, that they drowned in the big
The vats.
in the what you call it, in the
Vats?
eh?
The vats.
Not wax.
The vats. The big barrels, the huge barrels.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was tanks, you know, big tanks, you know, which one they used to be the brandy and everything. So they used to drown inside. And there, and in the street, in the gutters, the brandy and the wines used to run just like water. So people used to go with buckets and scoop it up the liquor. And then they said it's a light on fire. So my father said, that is no business, unless we got the notice that the mayor will come and share with us the house. So he would send us in the basement, and he would take the upstairs. So my father, again with his brother-in-law and that nephew, and they scooped together, and they say they're not taking any money, paper money. They will change the money in silver and gold, rubles and gold sovereigns. And they bought a bag of salt, and they took it and they put a layer of salt, and a layer of rubles, and a layer of salt, and a layer of rubles, and they made, and the bag of salt was so high, 200 pounds, so it was plenty, and it was heavy. And they bought a carriage with a locomotive and a driver, and we're trying to run away from Ukrainians. So, and my father bought me a big doll, and the sack of salt stayed by the corner, because when it used to pass by on a station, we had to stop. And there were soldiers, so they came to Sets and asked how does we got a locomotive by itself with only 2 carriages. So they took away our locomotive and they hooked us on their what you call it, and they say they're going back to Germany, to the German, what you call it, Germany and Lithuania and the other small places, Latvia, Estonia and the others all. So they hooked us on. Then they had an attack, so again they unhooked us and left us in the middle of nowhere. So again, my father with the others walked and tried to get a little station and bribe another, who's got a locomotive with a driver, and buy it again and bribe it and get it. And then we crawled up to Bochnawe. That is just before Kovna. And there we landed and we stayed about 3 weeks. We couldn't go not here nor there. By the time they got some wagon and horses they bought, and they loaded up, and then we drove it already to Kovna. We came in Kovna. Kovna was dead. You see, everything was broken, shot, through, lapidated, just like after the war, And my father and the others, they were looking for accommodation. You couldn't get what you eat. That's from your son. What have you been today too much?
No, I'm all right. So your father went with the others to look?
For accommodation in Kovna, we did want to remain in Kovna. Then my father met a pal, Dr. Gudavich, which when they were in school together. But my father, they wouldn't take it to university because he was a Jew. He can't go and study for doctor. So my father went to yeshiva and he was the doctor. But they still remained very great friends. They were great friends. And he was a very rich Kanzer son. So he found them when he was in the military hospitals, So he found them, sagt Panitsek, dein Haus, sagt why must you go and look for accommodation here, which one you can't get it, and you'll have to pay rent. Go, sagt home to Arogala, and your house is, you will have to see to it, but it's still standing intact. So our house was cell-socked, all with holes, because it was a wood log was. So of course they plastered it up, and we came back. But our furniture was not as stick there. It was lended out to whoever had somewhere a roof to sleep on, took pieces of furniture from our house. But the woman, which one was our housekeeper, you see, she knew, she made a list who borrowed the furniture. So she went everywhere and said, the boss came back, and I want, you should bring the furniture back. And that's where we started off, And then we had semi-detached, so my father kept the other half. Whoever the refugees used to come back, for a couple of weeks. He used to give them accommodation, and then they find that their houses half demolished, or just to make it another little small house to put up already, because everybody came with money. But I want to tell you with the money what it used to be. So soon the soldiers used to come, so they used to shovel out that bag of salt outside, and they used to take me and plunk me on and say, sit on it. A little girl sits with a doll, what will they do? I'm sitting on a bag of salt. So they wouldn't touch it. And they had 15,000 rubles in gold and silver they came with. And then they started off, doing business and so on. And then broke out the typhus, the epidemic. Then came a gripe, called this, that is worse than the typhus, that called the gripe. It was known everywhere, because corpses used to lie down. When we went to make our garden, we found that a corpse there, And in a few yards away was other corpse, and others weren't even buried. You see, then it was the epidemic, but no hospital and no doctors were there. And that's what it was. They were sick. In summer they used to recuperate a little bit, and then they used to get a relapse and get sick again. Myself and Abe were never sick of the typhus and the grippe, but Abe used to faint. He used to faint. And we two of us, little ones, about 12, 13, we had to nurse them, all of them. And then not ourselves, we had to nurse the neighbors too. Then one day, my mother was, and my father, it was the crisis, when you are alive or the next you're going to die. So, and I knew that Gudavich, we used to call him Dadushka, we used to call him uncle, because he was a very great friend to my father. And he came back, he also deserted the army, and he came back to the farm. So as it happened, there was no doctor, there was an orderly only, from another hospital, but he was so busy that he couldn't manage the same refugees which one came back. So one afternoon I took a horse and I put on a saddle and I rode to that Gudavich, to his farm. So I got, and I had to ride through a big forest, and there were wolves. So I had a pack of wolves going to catch the horse, and the horse got wild, got running. So I came already near the farm. His dogs went and attacked the wolves. So it was a commotion, so he came out with a rifle. And then he saw me on the horseback. So Chayetsko, what are you doing here? So my mother, my father, and my brothers are dying, you must come. So he took a little carriage and with a horse, and I put my horse on the back on the list, and he set me in, and he came to see my father. We see our people, we're sick. Then after that, I knew next door, and in the next door in our other side of the house is also people there. And I was so big, and he went, galafé. You know what galafé is? Breeches. He was wearing breeches and high boots. And I remember that I could reach him just to catch by the breeches. So I said, Dadushka, you must come with me next door. Also there's people this. And then he gave him the last resort, that was camphor. And when I knew already, when they give camphor, then it's already, or you recover or you're dead. So I took Abel by the hand, and I said, Abel, let's go and pray in the Pesemetras. We lopen door en Kedes. So you give 10 years from your life, and I'll give 10 years from my life. It will be 20 years for the mommy and daddy, and let them be alive. And we were crying by the Orankedes and praying, and then we came home. And then they became better. So
it's a good one.
I will never forget this. This I will never forget. And I had very long hair, so he told me to plait my hair in plaits tight and roll around and take a white doek and said, you must put it on like this, tight, that a flea or a louse from that sick person, because this grippe and the typhoid breed these lice and fleas. And if you get bitten by that louse or the flea, then you also get sick. So I remember that he brought me up the doek, he found it, and he tied up my head very tight, that it should not go in my hair. I don't want to cut your hair off this. My mother, he cut it off just like that, shaved it off all the hair. So that not give them a chance to breed the lice there. That you see, short hair, you can wash it, and this, and to wash the hairs with paraffin. You see, then they die. And myself and Abby, we used to be the nurses and the cooks, and the feeding the animals and looking after the garden. And with that peasant woman, which one she was with us, there's 3 of us. We were the not sick ones. And for 3 years in succession, it used to come autumn, they used to get sick again. But they survived, and then they didn't survive Hitler. See, that's the story, how it was. But I can this I'll never forget. This stays in front of me, the whole picture, how it is. Yeah. So that's why I don't want to see war pictures anymore. I saw soldiers plenty when I was very small, and that, raises so much in your brains that you can't get rid of it.